We saw that moment this morning when Wilbur Ross was on CNBC, and he suggested that federal employees who are furloughed, he doesn't understand why they're going to food banks for food. They could just get a bank loan to tide them over in the meantime. That comment's been criticized by a number of people as perhaps out of touch. Now, Larry Kudlow was just here at the White House talking to reporters a few moments ago. I asked him about Wilbur Ross's comment. He declined to criticize Wilbur Ross, but later in the gaggle, he was asked by a reporter about this again, and he made an impassioned defense of those federal workers who are continuing to show up for work even though they're not being paid. Here's what Larry Kudlow had to say.
Give them credit, okay? They honor us. They honor us by their service. I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat. I mean that sincerely. They honor us. Democrats have shut government down, all right? But you know what I'm saying. They honor us. And they do it because of their love for the country and the office of the presidency and presumably their allegiance to President Trump, but whatever, they're doing it. Give them some credit.
So a very different tone there from Larry Kudlow here, saying that federal employees, by showing up for work, honor us, and they do it for love of country, he said, and give them some credit. Larry Kudlow, interestingly, Scott, was asked here by a reporter. He had said he'd used the word volunteering earlier in the conversation and said that these federal workers were volunteering. And the reporter said, well, wait a second, how can they be volunteering if this is their job and they'll be fired if they don't show up, even though they're not getting paid? That's what prompted Larry Kudlow's comment there. He said, look, whatever semantic games you want to play, these federal workers are honoring us by doing what they're doing, and we should give them some credit. Scott?
You do have to wonder at some level, Eamon, as to whether these Wilbur Ross comments, which happened right here on this network, will go down to be a defining moment in some respects of this shutdown.
Well, they're being widely circulated on Twitter and widely repeated on other networks today, so they're getting a lot of traction. And it does raise the risk for this administration of being seen as out of touch in terms of the fiscal pain, financial pain that a lot of these federal employees are going through, the idea that they can simply go out and get a bank loan to tide them over. Some of these people, I just looked up what GS1 is. That's the lowest federal pay grade. That's $18,000 a year. At the lowest federal pay grade. I mean, there's a lot of people out there who are not making a whole lot of money, who are not necessarily familiar with the banking system, how to go get a loan, and it's an open question of whether the banks would take on the risk of giving them a loan, given that we don't know exactly how this is going to be resolved, and these are people who don't have a lot of assets.
And I presume, since we didn't hear it from Larry Kudlow, that he didn't say anything to try and clean up or expand on the comments that Secretary Ross made on the trade talks with China, where he said, and I believe the quote was that we were miles and miles away from a resolution.
You know, I asked him about that directly. Our Kayla Tausche sent an email with a couple of suggestions here on some questions to ask him on trade, and I was able to get one of her questions in, which is the Chinese side here prepared to make any concessions in terms of things beyond just buying additional goods? That is the structural stuff that the administration wants. And Larry wouldn't go there. He would not say that there was anything that the Chinese have offered so far in terms of concrete concessions. And I also asked him about that Wilbur Ross comment that we're miles and miles away. Larry made a hard-to-execute Robert Frost poetry joke. Robert Frost poetry jokes are not easy to land comedically, but he said what he was referring to was we have miles to go before we sleep. So that's how Larry played that one off.
All right.